With Snow White being the first Disney princess movie, there was a lot riding on the live-action adaptation. But when the trailer dropped, things took a turn, and fan expectations plummeted. Why this? Why that? People were questioning Disney's choices behind everything. Now that it's finally here and people can finally watch it in theaters, does Snow White exceed expectations, or will it go down as one of the weakest entries in Disney's ever-growing list of live-action remakes? Let's compare the two with Then vs. Now Snow White. Let's start with the story. The animated Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is pure, classic fairy tale. We've got Snow White, sweet, innocent, and basically a walking beam of sunshine. She's contrasted by her evil stepmother, the Queen, who's obsessed with being the fairest in the land. One day, the magic mirror, who the Queen always consults, tells the Queen that Snow White has surpassed her in beauty. She gets furious and basically orders a hit on her stepdaughter. Thankfully, the huntsman can't go through with it, and he lets Snow White go, and she escapes into the forest where she meets the Seven Dwarves and begins a new life. Temporarily, of course. When the Queen finds out Snow White's still alive, she disguises herself, gives her a poison apple, and instant coma. The dwarves defeat the Queen, but it seems too late. Only true love's kiss can break the spell, and in classic Disney fashion, the prince arrives just in time. It's a battle of good versus evil, innocence versus vanity, and it ends with a traditional happily ever after. Now, the live-action version keeps the bones of this story, but it fleshes things out a bit, and sometimes changes them entirely. While the original jumps right in with the Queen's jealousy, the remake slows things down. We start with Snow White's parents, the King and Queen, who are shown to be generous, noble rulers. We see how their kindness and sense of duty help shape Snow White into who she is. This version gives Snow White more backstory as well. We see her growing up, learning how to lead, and forming her own beliefs. It helps explain why she's not just kind, but also brave and determined. Eventually, her mother passes and the evil queen marries the king, and when he disappears, the evil queen takes full control, demoting Snow White to servant status, keeping her within the castle gates, and draining joy from the kingdom. From there, the remake starts syncing back up with the original. The mirror spills the truth, the queen gets jealous, orders the hit, the huntsman spares Snow White, and she runs into the woods and finds the dwarves. But things shift again. Instead of poisoning her right away, the queen sends royal guards after her. Snow White joins forces with a group of friendly bandits, one of whom is Jonathan, who is her love interest in replacement of the prince, and a battle breaks out between them and the guards. Eventually, Jonathan is captured. The queen then goes back to her original mode, transforming into the old hag and giving Snow White the apple. This time, though, she gets away with it. The dwarves arrive too late. Jonathan, however, escapes, returns to Snow White, and gives the true love's kiss. That sets the stage for a final confrontation. Snow White inspires the townspeople, stands up to the queen, and restores hope to the kingdom. It's a bigger, bolder take, but not always better. And I'm curious what people think in the comments, because while I did appreciate the additional backstory, I think a lot of the other changes were, a little too much? I don't know. That might just be me. Okay, now that we've covered the story, let's talk about characters. Snow White from 1937 is nice. Super nice. She doesn't have a lot of depth, but she radiates optimism, kindness, and innocence. She's more symbolic than complex, an idealized version of goodness. The Queen is the opposite. She's pure menace. She's elegant, cold, and dangerously vain. Easily one of Disney's most iconic villains. The dwarves are the heart of the movie. Each has a defined personality that doesn't really stray too far from it. Grumpy, dopey, dark, bashful, you know the deal. They all add some warmth and humor to the story. And the prince, well, he's there. He sings, he kisses, and that's pretty much about it. Now in the live-action remake, Disney clearly tried to do more and go deeper. Snow White, played by Rachel Ziegler, is still kind, but she's also determined, idealistic, and brave. She wants to take her kingdom back, and she's not waiting for anyone to rescue her. Her relationship with her late parents gives her emotional grounding, and she often reflects on what they would do in moments of crisis. It's a definite step forward in terms of giving her real character motivation. The Queen, played by Gal Gadot, is kind of the same in theory. She's still vain, still power-hungry, but while we get a little bit more insight into her motives, the performance just doesn't land. Gadot lacks the menace that made the original Queen so terrifying. She looks the part, but doesn't quite sell the fear aspect to things. The dwarves are also back. Kinda. This time, they are CGI-enhanced magical beings, and honestly, it's a little uncanny. It's like Uncanny Valley status. and I'm not alone in that. Critics and audiences both found them unsettling, and they don't have quite the same warmth and charm as their animated counterparts. And then there's Jonathan, the prince's replacement. He's a charming bandit who becomes Snow White's ally and eventual love interest. He's a much more active character than the original prince. He fights, he jokes, and he's got some personality. Think Flynn Rider meets Robin Hood. That's kind of what Jonathan is. Alright, let's move on to tone. The original film balances whimsy and darkness. It's dreamy and sweet, but it doesn't shy away from being creepy, especially the Queen's transformation. It's that contrast that gives the story emotional depth. And for those of you that go to Disney World or Disneyland, do y'all remember the Snow White ride? Like the original, not the roller coaster where you go through the mines. That ride is scary. Like the tight turns, the creepiness of it all, how you're traveling through the woods, it's all very scary, and I feel like it captures the tone of this film. Now, the live action film tries to replicate it, but not quite. It also does its own thing. It tones down the whimsy and the horror, and replaces them with a more theatrical, modern vibe. Everything feels bigger, more polished, but also more hollow. There's actually a line in the film that the mirror says to the Queen that I feel sums it up, and I don't quite know it verbatim, but it's basically, your beauty is only skin deep, but Snow White's beauty comes from within. And I feel like that applies to this film as well. Like, the live action remake is very pretty, like, obviously it's all polished up, it's more modern, but I feel like the animated film had some genuine authenticity behind it. And I don't want to disregard the artist behind this live action film, it's just there's something about it that feels a little more shallow, you know, more aesthetic on the outside but not quite there on the inside. And of course, let's talk about the music. You've got Hi Ho, the ultimate whistle while you work song, and let's not forget, Someday My Prince Will Come became the Disney princess ballad for decades. Now, the songs of the original help shape the story, the characters, and the overall tone. The live-action remake takes a more modern approach. The soundtrack feels like it came from the same musical DNA as Frozen, Tangled, Moana, like all of these modern Disney stories. Snow White's big solo, Waiting on a Wish, is very much in line with the modern Disney princess vibe. Ziegler's voice gives the strong, real presence too. It's hopeful, strong, and full of longing. There's also Hand Meets a Hand, which is a duet between Snow White and Jonathan that highlights their growing bond and their romance. And honestly, I really like that one. Weird comparison, but the song gave me Dancing Through Life from Wicked crossed with I Guess I Miss You from the SpongeBob musical. I know it's weird, but that's just how the song sounded to me, and I love both of those songs. But not all of the songs hit quite the same. All Is Fair is the Queen's big villain number, but Gal Gadot just doesn't have the vocal weight to carry it. She kind of sounds like she's just talking louder instead of properly singing, and it kind of falls flat. The remake also brings back some of the classics, like Hi Ho and Whistle While You Work, and they're going to be divisive. Personally, I love Ziegler's take on Whistle While You Work. Her deeper vocal tone adds something fresh, and I kind of like it for my ears. Like, my ears found it pleasant to listen to. But I know a lot of people will watch the scene and will be like, why is she bossing around the dwarves? Why isn't she helping? She basically just took over their house. And I've seen comments about that through leaks online, so I know this song is already divisive. But personally, I did like it. But what are my final thoughts on the film? I'm gonna be transparent with y'all. I literally watched Cinderella 2015 right before this, and I don't think this remake tops that. Just had to get that out of the way. I know I'm totally biased, but, you know, everyone's a little biased. The film is different, and that's not necessarily bad, but also not necessarily good. I thought it was fine, but if you're going in expecting a faithful adaptation of the original, you might walk away disappointed. Some things stood out in a not great way. For one, the costumes, while accurate to the original designs, kind of looked awkward and goofy on screen. Snow White's hair and dress are a little uncanny, and the Queen's outfits feel kind of like, I don't know, it's just so goofy. Some people say it looks like cosplay, but I don't know, it just doesn't hit. And again, I did watch Cinderella 2015 again, and that was literally nominated for Best Costume Design, so I like the direction it went compared to the direction this went, but again, that's just me. And yeah, there's Gal Gadot. She doesn't quite work in this role, and I feel like someone else should have played the Queen. I feel like someone that is more menacing, and possibly someone with a better singing voice. I don't know, maybe I just don't like Gadot's performances all around. That's on me. Comment down below who you think should have been. And while we're still talking about Snow White, we can't ignore the controversy surrounding this film. casting backlash, the reimagined dwarves, the rework storylines, it's been divisive from the start, and that 100% affects how people will receive the film. And I'm trying to be fair with it, but no matter what I say, people are always gonna feel some type of way. So, there you have it, a quick side-by-side comparison of the original Snow White and the 2025 remake. While the original remains a beloved classic, the remake is still up in the air. So far it's been a mixed bag, with people saying that it's a bold but flawed reimagining. But what do you think? Do you prefer the timeless charm of the original or the new direction of the remake? If you like this type of breakdown, don't forget to comment down below to let us know. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you will be notified when we upload next. Thanks for watching channel Frederator, and remember, Frederator loves you.